gosh, this feels really good. So if you're looking at this, I think Iowa State will be favored against Kansas State. We're in Ireland. We're having a good time. Let's beat Kansas State in Ireland. South Dakota, again, competent, but you should beat them by a couple touchdowns. That's 2-0. Iowa, tough game. Road team usually wins. Fuck them, 3-0. Arkansas State, 4-0. Arizona State, 5-0. Cincinnati, tough, but definitely can win. I mean, like you should be favored by a touchdown at least in that. If you're 5-0 at this point, you are favored by at least a touchdown. 6-0 at Colorado. If you're 6-0 right now and Colorado is 4-2, let's see, what does Colorado's schedule look like? So they've got Georgia Tech, which maybe is a trap game. Delaware is bad. Houston's a little bit of a tough one, especially during the season. They got Wyoming, and then they got BYU. So, Colorado and at TCU, Colorado's probably 4-2 at best, maybe 3-3 or maybe 3-3 or worse, but probably 4-2 or probably 4-2, I would say. You could there's a very realistic path here to being 7-0 there. Being 7-0 heading into BYU, Arizona State. And then you got BYU and Arizona State at home. BYU, let's see, they are coming. So they're at the end of a 6-game stretch. So they would have just played the Holy War the week before. So that is a big emotional letdown from there. You have to sit there and be on adrenaline all week for that Holy War and then come down. If they lose that game, this is terrible. But even if they win that game, going on the road to Iowa State after the Holy War sucks for BYU. That's a tough spot for BYU. I think you're favored in that. I think you win that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Arizona State's tough. You look at it, it's hard to shake off the memory of last season. This little stretch that they're coming off here is 3 easier, 3 of their easier points. Maybe Texas Tech is a tough one. Maybe Texas Tech is good enough to sneak to, steal one in Tempe. But, this is a 3-game stretch where it should be manageable for Arizona State. They should be on a little bit of a roll coming in here. They're probably at least, maybe they lose one of TCU or Baylor, but otherwise they're, 4, let's say they're 4-1, 5-1, 6-1, 7-1. This could be a 7-1 Arizona State versus an 8-0 Iowa State, which I think would be a probably close to a top 10 matchup, if not a top 10 matchup, very close to it. That would be I don't know what the SEC schedule looks like. This is kind of prime part of the SEC and Big Ten schedule where you're going to run into other big games. But if it's a top 10 matchup, you're talking about maybe having game day or something like that. But you're still at home, night game, black uniforms, probably. This is still a game Iowa State can win. It's revenge for the Big 12 title game. Maybe this is a chance where you can really, if you go to 9-0 in Arizona State, if you go to what would it be 7-0 in conference, 8 or 6-0 in conference, and knock Arizona State back to 4-2, you're feeling really good about your stretch down the end of the season. But for fun, let's say they lose that one. You go on the road to TCU. If you lose at Arizona State, you probably don't feel as good about the TCU game, but you're still probably favored. TCU is coming off that long stretch. I think you can win that game. I think you win that game. So at this point, you are 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 9-1. Kansas at home. I think you got the bye week there. I think you can shake off the ghosts here. 10-1. At Oklahoma State's a little tough. Maybe you drop that 10-2. My 10-2 is predicated on losing one of 2 home games that you are probably going to be favored in, probably in both, and losing this road game that you're probably going to be favored in. If Iowa State's season shakes out how I think it's gonna, there's a pretty decent chance they'll be favored in every game. Meaning that there is a realistic path to 12-0. I don't think that's going to happen. I think the odds are That's true. Iowa State has never won 10 games. Iowa State has never won 10 games in a season. Absolute poverty. So there's a realistic path here to 12-0 because of the way the schedule shakes out. It's not going to happen. Well, I don't think it's going to happen. The odds are very much against 12-0. But I mean, let's say you even lose Iowa, you lose Kansas State, and you lose one of these. That's still 9-3, and that's still 9-3, and you are you only have one loss in conference, which is going to put you in Arlington. I mean, gosh, even if you lose Kansas State, I guess Kansas State's a Kansas, you'd have two losses, but you'd still be probably on a tiebreaker to get into Arlington. If you beat Kansas State and Iowa, the quest for 11-1 or better is fully on, because the rest of this schedule feels great. I mean, like I hate to be that guy that's like, oh, we're going undefeated or whatever, but like I'm looking at the schedule. I'm looking at there's a clear divider between, you know, the teams at the top. Like I think Iowa State, BYU. I think Iowa State and BYU are probably I think they are tier 1A, and I think you got Baylor, Kansas State, Texas Tech, and TCU in tier 1B or maybe tier 1.75, whatever you want to call it. But I think there's a difference between like those 5 or 6 teams and the rest of the conference that has major question marks.